That was the lowest point. I was struggling with a lot of things in my life at that time. And, she being from a family that was halfway decent and normal, she told me like all the things I knew or I grew up with was wrong, right? So she had to help me kind of retrain my thought process and retrain how I do things and my morals and habits. So I met her thankfully early on. And from there, I was kind of like relearning how to be a person again, because in my household, my dad was always gone. It was always a very challenging situation. And my mom was just trying to get by, because she was abused as well. So I was 17, fresh out of high school, and I was like wild, right? But yeah, she taught me, and her mom also taught me a lot of stuff too, because her mom owned a business, like I was telling you. And, it was almost like that rich dad, poor dad story, right? My rich, poor mom. And she just showed me how to look at life in a different view. And so, yeah, I contribute that solely to my wife, who's my wife now. Yeah.
One thing I'll tell you, Tony, is, having grown up in a household where there was, domestic violence, your stories definitely resonated a lot with me. And so, just wanted to add to the people who have already communicated to you that, thank you for sharing your story. It seriously means a lot, especially thinking about not only having experienced it, but overcoming it, I think is like that piece that can be so inspiring. And so for you, are you doing some life coaching work now?
Yeah. So the whole point of this thing was I figured, if I got 20 people to follow
Yeah.
me and, 2 people got on the group, it'd be great. So I wanted to offer something that was like just someone to talk to, because I didn't have a mentor growing up, and that really helped me once I did find somebody to kind of latch onto. So I did offer the free group training. At first, it was more business oriented, and then later it kind of turned to a life type of thing too,
Yeah.
where people would DM me or join the group and say they've got problems with things at home, or they just didn't have confidence. And so I was able to kind of relate to those kind of people, and that was the mission after that.
Wow. And so how is that group going now? What are your aspirations for it?
Yeah, so it started off as I wanted to show people how to create their own business, doing digital marketing, that kind of thing. I have 2 students that are doing that, and they're about to launch today. And then a bunch of other people, I found out, I'm like, well, you can't box them into what you're doing as far as what my company's doing. And so I figured, I was asking people what do they want, what are their goals in life, and so I was able to kind of open that up. And so we went from 2 members to now we got 65 members. For me, that just blows my mind, because I figured I wouldn't even have 5 people. So it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's incredible because you get to play this role of someone that, you wish that you had in your own life.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I was missing, because looking back now, the one thing I was lacking was, at the time, was a quote unquote father figure. I found a mother figure, and then I found a spouse figure, so it was even better. But I felt like I could have moved much quicker, maybe shaved off 20 years of my life, and done this a little bit faster if I had someone to talk to.
Yeah, and I think about the importance of, mentorship, and, that's what you're giving a lot of these people. And so if you don't mind me asking, so are they of all different ages? What is the demographics of the people in your group?
Oh man, they go as young as, there was a 14-year-old kid that reached out, and they were getting bullied in Europe somewhere. I think they're in the UK. All the way to 65-year-old person, a female that was abused by her husband, just trying to get back on her feet now. So it ranges pretty wide. And then on YouTube, I'm talking to this kid now, that kid that was being bullied. So I offered to sign them up for jiu-jitsu class to kind of give them some confidence and stuff like that. So it's more like a game to see if like I said, I was super competitive. I want to see if I can bring this person from where they're at now to some place that's just unbelievable, and that's the mission.
Are there any people in kind of the self-development / motivation space that you look at, and you have learned from?
Yeah, man, Jim Rohn has been my guy. So back again, I had a mental breakdown, woke up at 2 a.m. one morning, just heart palpitating. And I found, through my wife again, she mentioned Jim Rohn, and I was on there, and I did a year-long study of Jim Rohn's teachings from 5 o'clock in the morning till about 8 o'clock, and I did this for a whole year just to understand, because the way he delivers his message is very calming, and I was able to dissect every little detail of what was ailing me, and so he's like the number one top guy for sure for me.
Tony, when you were in that point of trying to climb out of the hole that you were in, were you doing it for yourself, or were you doing it for your now wife, or who were you doing it for?
It started off as doing it for my wife, right? Because, she was very believing in me at the time. But then at one point, like when I first started the company, I spent a good 6 years away from my son, didn't even know who he was, just busy working. And then I never took care of my core things, my core issues, which was anxiety and stress.
Mm.
And so when I started to have those mental breakdowns, my body was starting to break down. And then I was like, I think I might be having a heart attack. And through that experience, I was like, okay, it's not for anyone else anymore. This is for my mental well-being. So I'm gonna take care of myself. And so that's what came about, that whole, the whole Jim Rohn thing. And then I implemented Wim Hof, which is like the
Yes.
Iceman, right? That's my guy too. I attribute those two for saving my life because I was headed
Wow.
down a path of deterioration. Like success was there professionally, but physically, I mean, I was just like on autopilot, walking around with my wife all day with my phone stuck to my ear. So it wasn't
Mm.
a happy feeling.
You didn't have everything squared away holistically, it sounds like.
Yeah, I didn't take care of myself first, for sure.
Whenever you were doing a lot of research into Jim Rohn's teachings, what were some takeaways that have really stuck out to you that you hold near and dear to your heart? And obviously, I know a lot of it was valuable, but I'm sure there are some things that stuck out to you.
Yeah, there was this one story he talked about where you can't play while you're at work, and you can't work while you're at
Mm.
play. And so he would go to the beach, and he's like, "Oh, I wish I was at my office to answer these phone calls." And then he missed the time with his family, and then he was at his office thinking, "Oh, I wish I was at the beach,"
Mm.
And he said, you can't be in the shower, taking a shower while you're thinking about how to answer phone calls and work. And so I got into car accidents, man. I'd be on the phone talking, and I'd get into a head-on accident because I was too busy doing two things at one
Mhm.
time. And so being a person with ADD, that was like super calming. That really resonated with me. And so now when I do something, I realize that, okay,
Mm.
I'm doing this one thing, and they say be present, right? But I'm able to filter that out now, as opposed to just trying to like juggle too many things at one time that cause a lot of issues.
Oh, interesting. So the core of Jim's story was if you are thinking about something else in your present moment, then you aren't actually being present, right?
Right, and you're not effective
Mm.
at either one, so you're kind of juggling two things. And I equate it to like this: when I'm driving a car and I'm sitting there trying to type an email message to someone because I think that it's so important that it has to be done now. The email message sucks. I get into a car accident, and it's like no one wins, right? So that's how I figured it now, and that changed my life. But now I'm kind of like an old man style where I can't do two things at once, but it's helped me a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And so it's interesting because if I think about everything you experienced growing up and all of the development you've done, how have you taken everything you've learned and applied that to, your two kids that you are now raising with your wife? Because I'm sure there are so many things.
Yeah, they get annoyed with me now because I'm always trying to coach and mentor them. So I took on the task of coaching both their soccer teams last
Oh,
season.
awesome.
I'm just very vocal, and because I didn't have a mentor, I really try to be that spot for
Hmm.
them. But I'm trying to find the groove of not being annoying and being a little bit more guiding.
Mm.
But it's everything for me and my wife right now. Every single aspect that we deal with them about, whether it be chores all the way to sports to school and friendship and how to navigate through life,
Mm.
has that lesson in there. And then ultimately we try to let them know that's their decision, but we're just here to guide them as opposed to force them to be a certain way. A lot of Asian families, like I grew up with, very forceful, but
Yes.
no tools handed. You know what I mean? You got to get A's, but I can't help you with your homework. That kind of
Yeah, yeah, literally. That resonates a lot. Tiger parenting, I'm sure, is definitely something that was very common for a lot of kids in our generation.
thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because, when I think about trying to mentor or guide someone, it's a very delicate balance of understanding how to press, that person's buttons because like other people resonate with different types of feedback. And so it's like having the ability to see which button to press for what specific person. And so how have you kind of, thought about that, especially because you're not only coaching your two kids on those soccer teams, but you're coaching all of these other people's children as well.
Yeah, that's a difficult one. So my wife and I find ourselves in bed every single night, and we've had tears of joy all the way to just tears of, oh my gosh, I hope I'm doing the right thing.
Mm.
Uh, we do a thing where we reevaluate every night. Did we parent correctly today? Were we too hard?
Mm.
And was there anything that we could have done better that maybe take away some of the baggage that our parents put into us?
Hmm.
Are we delivering that to our kids? So we really want to break that generational curse. And I
Mm.
do that with, I'm trying to coach right now is like, let's take away all of the things that I learned, right? All the things that I came up with, and let's come at with, what experiences you had in your life. And then we try to adjust from there. But we definitely had this issue where it was a little forceful at first. It's kind of pushy. And then we realized that that's not working either. And everyone learns at their own pace
Yes.
and their own style. because my kids are completely different, and one kid's super one way and it's very easy to mentor, and the other kid's a little bit combative. And then it's just a really weird dichotomy, but we're trying, we're trying to figure it out. A lot of tears, man, a lot of lonely nights.
Yeah, of course. And I imagine it is a full-time job raising, one kid. And so having two, I'm sure is a big task for you and your wife.
I can't complain though, because she's been taking care of everything up until probably this
Mm,
year. So I'd wake up, I'd have food on my table, I'd have drinks done, smoothies, the kids are at school. And
wow.
so I did not wake up out of this cloud until about a year
Mhm.
ago, to where I was like, oh my God, I haven't done anything to help her out. So now I'm trying to focus more on, how to help her out with what her goals are like. Because, a lot of females, they tend to put their goals
Yeah.
aside and their dreams and aspirations, and then they do it for your husband. All of a sudden, the husband becomes something, and then the wife is like, "Okay, what about me?" And next thing you know, you're 50 years old, so it's kind of difficult.
Yeah, and I think it takes a lot of self-awareness to then recognize that, for your wife. And so you mentioned that she also, is in content creation. What type of content does she make?
Well, she started back during
Uh-huh.
COVID, right? So that's when all the dances and the cute stuff was
Yeah.
going on. And, she shot video day in, day out, and she was bored, so she wanted to try
Mhm.
it. And then we shot one video that went viral. But at the time, we were like, I don't know if this viral video, it's kind of more adult related. At the time, it was like one of those
Yeah.
trends. And it got like 4 million views or something. And we were like, oh my God, look at all these comments. And, we didn't realize how mean people are online, right?
Yes.
You could be helping a homeless person and someone will throw something in there and tell you how horrible you
Yeah.
are. So she kind of slowed that down for the past 2 or 3 years,
Mm.
and then now she's trying to get back on there. But she's the one that had this whole vision for content creation in the first place.
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting because to your points, you could be, handing something to a homeless person and then something negative will come in the comments, like doing this for likes or clicks or something like that.
Yeah.
So there will always be, someone who doesn't resonate with your content. Have you experienced any of that in your content or videos?
Oh my gosh, so much. Yeah, I've
Mm.
got things from people talking about how weird my eyebrow looks. I slept weird one day, all the way to like really mean things. They went from that to some people have racial comments that has nothing to do with the
Mhm.
topic.
Wow.
One video I shot inside my closet, which happened to have some kind of box back there with a brand name or something. And this lady was like, hey, you're trying to show off whatever this was back here. I can't even pronounce the word, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. But yeah,
Wow.
it kind of, at first I kind of got like insulted by it. And then after a while, I was like, I just won't read the comments anymore. I don't really care unless it's a comment from a person that asked for help or
Of
for, they
course.
need something. Yeah, but I just scroll through them now and it's just whatever.
Yeah, and so how did you get to the point where, those comments affected you a little bit in the beginning, but now, they don't bother you as much? Because I feel like for content creators and anyone in the public space or that is something that can be challenging. And especially to your point, women really struggle with that because, sometimes they can be a little bit more sensitive to those comments.
Yeah, at first it got my blood boiling. I would sit there and try to comment back. And, when you get to a part where you're stalemated and that person is just
Yeah.
unreasonable, where you're arguing with someone and all of a sudden they have no more points left to talk
Yeah.
about. And so I found out like I spent a lot of time just commenting and arguing. And again, my wife was like, man, seriously, you can't sit there and spend your time being angry and your heart rate's up just to
Mm.
comment to these people. And so I was like, no, you're totally right. So I stopped commenting completely to the ones I felt was kind of
Yeah.
weird. And it's been fantastic because I haven't looked back since and I haven't really thought about it. It doesn't hurt me at all. And, worst case, you can just block people.
Yeah, 100%.